He's someone who could add something to the collective balance of the Arsenal attack. It's a long shot, but it might just work.
Perfect for the Premier League because he is your classic number 9.
The risk of upset is small, and the benefits of having him around, I think, would greatly outweigh that.
Another season, and it seems to be another opportunity missed for Arsenal when it comes to lifting that coveted Premier League trophy. It was always going to be a huge task for the Gunners to overtake Liverpool in the league table, but as each game goes by, Mikel Arteta's title mission moves further off course. After the 0-0 draw at Nottingham Forest, the gap with Liverpool stretched to 13 points. The London side have failed to score in 3 of their past 4 matches. Gabriel Jesus and Kai Havertz are ruled out for the rest of the season. Bukayo Saka and Gabriel Martinelli are not expected back until April, if they're lucky, and Mikel Merino's stint as a goalscorer is proving to be a flash in the pan. Things aren't looking good. Despite Mikel Arteta himself insisting he will give up on the title race over his dead body, he admitted that after the Forest match that he knows they are desperately in need of reinforcements in front of goal, especially with the Champions League meeting with PSV on the horizon.
Well, we have another day or two now to think before the PS game, other options that we have, especially against teams that they are in this low block, but if we wouldn't arrive, if they would open up, if they would be opponent much better than us, I would be probably in a very different state. I know that what is lacking is that piece up there, and as you said, it's a lot to play for, and we need to find a solution to unlock it.
The club are of course still in contention when it comes to Europe, but the main question for Arsenal is where are their goals going to come from in order to remain in that second spot and potentially chase Liverpool, but to also progress beyond PSV? And why did they not bring a striker in? talkSPORT's own Adrian Durham has had his say, branding Mikel Arteta as arrogant for not bringing in a number 9.
Do you think Mikel's angry enough about not having a centre-forward, a goal scorer they can bring in and rely on?
No, I think he was arrogant rather than angry. I think earlier in the season when he was asked about the makeup of the squad and the lack of a number 9, lack of a goal scorer, I think he was thinking, well, City won the title a couple of years ago without a number 9. We can do the same. Well, you're trying to run before you can walk, mate. I think he needed a better squad than he's got. If you look at some of their signings last summer, so Marino scored 2 against Leicester. Lads, it's Leicester, and I agree with you on Ruud van Nistelrooy, Dean. Strange appointment, but Marino came in. I don't think they needed that type of midfielder in the squad. Calafiori came in. I'm not entirely sure why they needed to sign him as well when they needed a number 9. So it's poor squad management. But I also think that he's kind of been too relaxed, too laid back, if you like, Mikel Arteta, which is unlike him. Too reliant on set pieces. They haven't scored from a corner for well over 25 games now, which, that's meant to be one of their main sources. I think in this season, when City have imploded completely, this was Arsenal's chance, and Mikel Arteta's got it all wrong.
So yes, the transfer window may be closed, but there's still the option of free transfers. So let's take a look at 5 possibilities. First up, it's Roberto Firmino. The 33-year-old exited Liverpool in the summer of 2023 and has since been playing in the Saudi Pro League for Al Ahly. However, there are reports that he has been relieved of his duties after being left out of the team's squad list in order to make room for new signings. Joining me to discuss this more is talkSPORT's Saudi Arabia reporter, Ben Jacobs. Ben, great to have you with us. Could you shed some light perhaps on what has happened to Firmino since his departure from the Premier League?
So Bobby Firmino moved to Al Ahly, one of the biggest clubs in Saudi Arabia. They are controlled by the PIF, but in Saudi Arabia you have a foreign quota of 8 players of any age. And in the last winter window, Al Ahly signed a winger from Porto by the name of Galeno, and that basically meant, including Ivan Toney, they've got 9 any age foreigners. So as a result, Bobby Firmino, even though he's the captain of Al Ahly, was deregistered from the Saudi Pro League. He can still play in the AFC Champions League, but not in the league between now and the end of the season, presuming that nobody gets injured. And that's called into question his future at the club. In theory, he could terminate his contract and become a free agent, or perhaps more likely, he'll continue to play in the AFC Champions League and then he'll become a free agent in the summer. It's not the first window that we've heard Bobby Firmino might leave Saudi Arabia, but now his future looks much more uncertain in Saudi because naturally a player of his caliber would want to play every week. And at the moment, he can't in the Saudi Pro League.
He still managed to score 14 goals out there, and with his experience in the Premier League, hypothetically, he could be worth Arsenal taking a look at, no?
I think Arsenal's starting point is that they don't want to dip into the free agency market and they want to assess their attack-minded options in the summer. And we know that Mikel Merino is sort of the stopgap number 9. Once we get to the summer, there'll be players that Arsenal have worked on for quite some time, and they'll know that they're available in the market, particularly Benjamin Sesko, who's very much sold on the Arsenal project, but wanted to do one more season at Leipzig. Then you've got Alexander Isak, no guarantee. He'll be available in the summer and not for a low fee either, but Arsenal are still looking at his profile and the possibility that maybe if Newcastle don't get Champions League football, coupled with a sweat over their PSR position, they might be able to do some business there. So for Arsenal, it's about not panic buying, not necessarily getting a free agent for the sake of it, and then waiting for the summer for the right number 9 target to emerge. Of course, we're not speaking at the moment of Firmino being a free agent either. But if that changes, then naturally you have to look at a player like that, whether in the short term or potentially for even longer. And Firmino's perspective is very much he'd be open to return to Europe. He would very much come back to the Premier League. Playing for Liverpool wouldn't necessarily stop him from moving to a rival of Liverpool's, but it's hypothetical at the moment because it's Al Ahly that don't yet want to terminate his contract. So even if Arsenal did want to decide on Firmino and feel that he might be a short-term fit, at the moment it's only a hypothetical because he isn't a free agent, and it's likely therefore that Arsenal will have to wait, and so will Firmino, until the summer. And then by the time we get to the next window, Arsenal will have budget and desire for other more long-term targets, most likely at this stage, Benjamin Sesko.
Thank you very much for that, Ben. Next up, it's a familiar Premier League face in Diego Costa. After his stint at Wolverhampton, he returned to Brazil, playing for Botafogo and Grêmio. His contract with the latter expired in January, and with the former Chelsea player already ruling out any return to Stamford Bridge, could this open the door to the Emirates? Joining me to talk more about the player is South American football expert Tim Vickery. Tim, thank you so much for joining me. Now, there were reports back in September that Costa was sent off for fighting in a B-Team Cup match consisting mostly of under-20 players. He's still got that spark, shall we call it, hasn't he? But why did his contract end in Brazil?
Because he's 36 and he wants a lot of money. His salary demands are higher. When he hasn't retired, there's no thought of retirement. Nearly moved to Spain. There was interest from Valladolid during the January transfer window. And there's been interest from a number of Brazilian clubs. And I understand that his priority in an ideal world would be to stay in Brazil. But he appears to have priced himself out of the market for many of them. I think based both on his age and also on the fact that he's been picking up injuries. And he didn't do badly at all in his last spell in Brazil last year with Grêmio. And the stats look all right. And he came up really big in one or two big games. But he wasn't fit enough for all of them. And so I think people have been reluctant to spend a lot of money on a 36-year-old with a recent suspect injury record.
So he hasn't calmed down in his old age then?
Well, that's if you take that away from him, then, you know, what's left? And I love the story of when his first day at Chelsea, where he doesn't speak English. And I think he takes Fabregas as an interpreter, and he goes up to John Terry, who's the leader and captain of Chelsea. And he says to Terry, through his interpreter, he says, I'm going to get into a physical battle with the opposing centre-halves. And I'd like to know if it all kicks off, can I rely on you? And John Terry thought this was fantastic. This was the message that he wanted. You're all right. You'll do with us. He's always been very popular where he's been. You know, he's a good teammate, I think. And so, yes, that fire is still very much there. I suppose a big problem now is inactivity, because he hasn't played since the Brazilian season ended early December. And so now we're getting on for 3 months. So, you know, from an Arsenal point of view, there are virtues there. This is a proven campaigner with a proven Premier League record. You know he can do it in the Premier League. But as we're saying, he's now 36. There have been some injuries, and he hasn't been on the field in competitive action since early December. So as a short-term move for Arsenal, they could do worse, but there are risks involved. I was surprised that they didn't go for the Botafogo centre-forward, Igor Jesus, in the January transfer window. I thought he would be a player who may well fit in with what they were looking for. They didn't do that, so they're now based on the market, the bargain bucket market for desperados. Who's free? Who's a free agent? Diego Costa is a free agent, but the downside of that is that he's been inactive for nearly 3 months.
Costa did score 59 goals in 120 games for Chelsea and won 2 Premier League titles, but that was back in 2017. Has he still got it?
Well, obviously, in the race between time and the athlete, there's only ever one winner. So if you're expecting the same Diego Costa that you saw at Chelsea, I don't think you're going to do that. The Diego Costa that you saw at Wolves may be. So he's not someone I don't think who's going to have the same kind of goal statistics, but he's going to make life easier for attacking midfielders arriving. He's going to take that physical battering. He's going to drag the defenders out of position. And so I think more than a player now who's going to shine individually, he's someone who could add something to the collective balance of the Arsenal attack. It's a long shot, but it might just work.
Former Arsenal captain William Gallas has actually spoken about the situation and said his character could be good for a squad when you need the mood to be lifted, but also said he could see him clashing with Mikel Arteta. Do you think there's a risk that he'd be more disruptive than helpful in the dressing room?
I think that risk is comparatively small compared to the possible rewards of bringing him in. I think he's aware of his importance in the scheme of things at this stage in his career. He's not going to be the big star man at Arsenal. He's going to be cooperating to the cause, and it is striking. He's how popular he's been. Pretty much wherever he's played. I remember when Diego Simeone took over at Atletico Madrid, and Diego Costa was out on loan, and on the team bus, as the news comes in that he's scored goals at wherever he is on loan, you can see the favourable reception from those Atletico Madrid players that they like him. And I think he's one of those who wants to give. He wants to give for the cause. So I think that the risk of upset is small. And the benefits of having him around, I think, would greatly outweigh that.
Thanks a lot for your take there, Tim. Another player is Uruguayan striker Maxi Gomez, who age-wise, at 28 years old, fits the bill a little better. He was linked with a move to West Ham a few years ago, but was sold in 2022 by Valencia due to UEFA financial fair play regulations and to free up a spot on their quota of non-European Union players. He then made the move to Turkish side Trabzonspor, but returned to Spain on a one-year loan with Cadiz last season and has been without a club after leaving Turkey. Joining me to speak more about him is Spanish football expert and former Wimbledon striker Terry Gibson. So first up, Terry, you were a striker, so I have to ask, what kind of striker ideally do Arsenal need?
One that scores goals first and foremost. That is, I mean, we do refer to this. We talk about different types of strikers, but all strikers are judged on whether they score goals or not. So unless you are a regular goal scorer, you can't be classed as a striker. So over the years, we've seen a variation in different types of strikers and wingers. Wingers now play on the opposite side to the pitch. Teams don't often play with two up front. It's normally one. Some teams like players that run in behind, some like players that get involved in the play. So there's all different types of strikers, but ultimately you need to be scoring goals to officially be a striker, to be honest. And every manager, every coach in every league throughout the world are looking for those players that are identifiable as prolific goal scorers.
Going on to talk about Maxi Gomez, what can you tell us about the type of player that he is, or at least was in La Liga? What was the general opinion of him in Spain?
Well, the early signs were fantastic, and one of a player that was going to go on to do great things in La Liga. He did play at Celta Vigo, that's where he initially came from Uruguay. And he made a really good impression. And it was no surprise when he got transferred to, at the time, a big club in Valencia. And there it sort of began to deteriorate. He did have a decent first season at the club. He is a big, strong centre forward. I always thought when he first came into La Liga was perfect for the Premier League because he is your classic number 9. You know, he's good at holding the ball up. He's good in the air. If you get good service to him, he should cause problems. But as the seasons have moved on and he's changed club to club, he hasn't become the finished article. And you look at his goal scoring record, it hasn't matched up to what we hoped we would see when we saw the early potential. But he's only 28 years of age. I mean, his last spell in Spanish football was last season at Cadiz. And at the time, it was seen as for a team that were in a relegation battle, that going to be in a relegation battle, a good signing. But he never brought anything to Cadiz. They got relegated. I think he had over 30 appearances, not all of them as starters, far from it. And he didn't score a goal. And that was one of the big reasons why Cadiz got relegated, because they hoped he would be the player that would bring them goals. He didn't. They went down. And I was slightly surprised when I had to check to see where he was, what he was doing. I was slightly surprised when I saw he was only 28. He's a player that has potential and still has potential, but he's one of those that's probably moved from club to club and hasn't really found his form on a consistent basis. But the potential is there, as I say. He's only 28. He's a big, strong, powerful centre forward. Plenty of caps for his country. So he might be one that someone would take a chance on.
Like you said, he is only 28. These should be your prime years. Do you think that in some capacity there is a player in there potentially? It's just about getting the right fit?
Exactly. And I still think at the age of 28, if you can get crosses into him, he holds the ball up well. I've never seen anything easily identifiable in terms of he's not a good character. He works hard. His personality seems to be okay. He's just drifted around in the last few years and not been a regular. And I lost track of him when he went to Trabzonspor, but he came back to Cadiz. He didn't look the same player as he looked when he first started out in La Liga with Celta Vigo and then the early seasons at Valencia. And it was a little bit sad, to be honest, a bit disappointed, because when he was younger, he really thought he had the potential. So I was pleasantly surprised when I saw he was only 28. So there is time. If someone wants to work hard on a player, who I think has a decent attitude, has all the physical attributes, well over 6 foot tall, and he's quite dynamic. He's not just a head on a stick and you pump the ball up to him. No, he had the makings of a good player. So hopefully somewhere along the line, someone will take a chance on a 28-year-old that will pay. It depends on money. I mean, it depends. I'm sure there are clubs that would take Maxi Gomez. I mean, over the years, he's been linked with all the big clubs around Europe, because everybody was looking for that big, strong, powerful centre forward that scores goals. So I'm slightly surprised at the age of 28, nobody's taken a chance on him, to be honest.
Sticking with footballers who have played in La Liga, we've got former Real Madrid player Mariano Diaz. He made over 60 appearances for Los Blancos, but is without a club since leaving Sevilla in the summer. For those who aren't aware, he played at Real Madrid, then he left for Lyon, then he re-signed. What happened in that period?
They had a buyback clause. He was a young player who made a really good impression, and he wasn't going to be first choice because other players were ahead of him. And they sold him, but had a buyback clause to Lyon, and he exploded in one season. I think he scored 21 goals for Lyon, and then other clubs around wanted to buy him. There was a buyout clause, but Real Madrid, because they had a buyback, they could get him far cheaper than anybody else. So I think the intention when they got him back was for him to be part of the squad and to play. But that never materialised. And then for over the 5 seasons, they tried to loan him out. Clubs wanted to sign him. He wasn't playing at Real Madrid and he would leave. And it caused a problem between him and the club in the fact that he just dug his heels in. And it's Ancelotti and Zidane, who both had him as a player when they were managers of Real Madrid, got fed up with him. They made it as clear as they could that he wasn't going to be part of the first team. It would have been beneficial for him to go on loan, beneficial to sell him. And over that 5-year period, he just wasn't interested in being a professional footballer. He wanted to be associated with Real Madrid rather than go and play for Valencia, Seville, other clubs in England. He refused to talk to anybody about any other deal apart from staying at Real Madrid. And it kind of cheesed me off, and it cheesed off the people at Real Madrid. It cheesed off a lot of people that there was a player that should have been playing for someone and scoring 10, 15 goals a year in the Liga or the Premier League. And he just chose to stay and basically rot at Real Madrid, never playing. So he's 31, so he's slightly different. He hasn't played again this season. And I think the attitude he showed, but he turned down a lot of clubs to stay at a place where he had no hope of playing. And it kind of smacked of someone that was prepared to sit there for the money, see the contract out. And this is the result of it now that he hasn't got a club.
This was a player that was given the number 7 shirt. There must have been a certain, I mean, you laugh about it now, don't you? Because you talk about that decline and the rot. There must have been a certain level of expectation for him at Real Madrid.
And also the front for him to take the number 7 after Ronaldo. I mean, good luck with that. And it caused a lot of controversy, to be honest, in Spain. Because he took the number 7. It's not just Ronaldo, there's other players over the years that have worn that number 7 shirt, and suddenly, I mean, expectations were high because when he came back from Lyon, you could see he's just under 6 foot, but he was quick, he worked hard, he was aggressive, he was a good finisher. So the expectations were high, but not that high. So I was really surprised. I presume it was just the number that was there, and he wanted it and got it, but it never worked out well. And you know, when he first came to Real Madrid, I didn't expect him to be a starter. In his second spell, I thought, you know, Benzema was still there. Benzema was still going to be the main striker. But I thought there was a possibility, because they play so many games, that he would be, you know, could be a good backup. But even when Benzema was missing, injured, they came up with different alternatives rather than using Mariano Diaz. And when it was clear that he had no future at Real Madrid in terms of playing, that's when he should have left. You know, because there were good clubs in the league, good clubs in the Premier League were asking me about him, willing to pay 15, 20 million pounds for him. But he wanted too much money. He had stipulations that he only wanted to go to certain clubs in the Premier League, and that was Champions League clubs. So at the time you were talking about Liverpool, United, Chelsea, Arsenal, just those clubs. He didn't want to speak to anybody else. He wasn't at that level. And he was quite happy to sit and just be a Real Madrid player without playing for 5 years. So that kind of attitude does affect further down the line. I mean, he ended up he got his contract finished. He went to Sevilla, played last season 13 appearances. Most of those would be off the bench. Didn't score a goal, and that was a 1-year contract. And that was his last club. So Sevilla were desperate for him when Real Madrid bought him back. And they probably thought he was still a player there. But when you haven't played for 5 years on a regular basis, then you're struggling to get back up to top form again.
Like you say, he has got some front, hasn't he? And I would imagine that kind of behaviour would be something that would maybe clash with a manager like Mikel Arteta.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. And most managers, to be honest, I mean, the number 7 shirt, I don't think managers would be there. Fussed about that. You know, fair play if you've got the confidence to take it after Ronaldo leaves the club. But I think that the fact that, you know, I understand some footballers might fancy their chances of staying at a club that they're not wanted. If they think there might be a change in a manager, or you might do it for a season, you might even a season and a half. You might think, no, if, you know, he doesn't like me, but, you know, I want to still be a success at Real Madrid. But once it drags on and on and on, and you keep turning down clubs and you keep turning down offers, and you're a last resort to be on the bench, let alone come on the pitch, then, you know, most players, the attitude would be different. But he was content to earn more money at Real Madrid than anywhere else, but not play. And that's affected his long-term career.
Well, who knows? After a bit of time without a club, maybe Diaz is feeling a little bit humbled, and Arteta could be the right manager to get a tune out of him. And finally, it's a blast from the past in former Arsenal forward Carlos Vela. He began his career with Arsenal in 2005 and had basically been scoring for fun with Los Angeles FC in the MLS, with 78 goals to his name. The Mexican is now deep into his 30s, but perhaps a trip down memory lane for the next few months with a player who is already well acquainted with the club could prove to be a big boost for Arsenal. Sorry Arsenal fans, but any port in a storm, right? Let us know in the comments your thoughts on if Arsenal should bring in any of these players and who they should be bringing in permanently this summer to fix their striker issue. Thanks for joining me. Make sure that you subscribe for all the latest football news here on talkSPORT.